My son told me Social Security needed him to be my representative payee because I was getting forgetful. He said it like he was doing me a favor, like I should feel relieved. After that, I only ever saw $50 in cash each month. He took the rest from my bills, he said, smiling. That went on for a while, right up until the morning I finally picked up the phone and called Social Security myself. The night he first brought it up, I had just come home from the grocery store. My feet hurt, my back hurt, and I was proud of myself for staying under my list. I set the bags on the counter, lined up the canned soup and cereal, and started marinating chicken for Sunday dinner. I was trying to make something nice for him and the grandkids. That always mattered to me. Feeding people, making them feel welcome. He walked in without knocking, like he always did, scrolling on his phone. "Hey, Mom," he said, "we need to talk about your check." Those words hit me like a cold draft under the door. Not your income or your security. Your check. A thing. Something to manage. I dried my hands on a dish towel and tried to smile. "What about it, honey?" He sighed like he was already tired of explaining. "The doctor said you've been mixing up your pills and forgetting stuff. Social Security needs someone to be your representative payee. It's just a formality. I'll handle it." The way he said forgetting stuff burned more than I expected. I thought about the one time I put my keys in the refrigerator, the one bill I paid late. I had joked about it, called it senior moment so I wouldn't feel scared. Hearing my son say it out loud, in that flat, practical tone, made it sound less like a joke and more like a judgment. "I can still pay my bills," I said, a little too quickly. My voice sounded small even to me. "Mom, come on," he replied, soft on the surface, sharp underneath. "We just thought it would be easier if I handled it. Safer. You don't want to mess up and lose your benefits, do you?" That we stung. We. Who was we? Him and my doctor? Him and Social Security? It felt like people had been talking about me in rooms where I wasn't invited. Like I was a problem to solve, not a person. He pulled a stack of papers from his backpack. "I already talked to Social Security. All you have to do is sign. They'll send the card to my address, I'll pay your bills, and I'll bring you some cash every month. You won't have to worry about a thing." I stared at the lines on the forms. My name, my Social Security number, his address written in his quick, messy handwriting. The fact that he had already spoken to them without telling me first felt like someone had rearranged my house while I was asleep and expected me to pretend nothing changed. "Why your address?" I asked. "Why not here?" He laughed a little, not kind, not cruel, just dismissive. "Mom, mail gets lost here. You're always putting stuff in piles. If it comes to my apartment, it'll be safe. I'll keep everything organized." Every word poked at something tender. Lost. Piles. Safe. Organized. Underneath each one, I heard another message. Irresponsible. Messy. Childlike. I looked around my kitchen, the plates stacked neatly, the spice jars labeled, the calendar with my appointments written in blue ink. My life wasn't perfect, but it wasn't chaos. Hearing him describe it like that made me feel like a stranger in my own home. "Do I have a choice?" I asked, even though I already knew what he would say. He softened his face into that practiced, gentle look. "Of course you do, Mom, but this is what Social Security wants. It's just what they do when people start having memory problems. I'm only trying to help. You trust me, don't you?" That last question cut the deepest. You trust me, don't you? He said it like love was proof I should hand him the wheel. If I said no, I would sound ungrateful. If I said yes, I was agreeing that I couldn't be trusted with my own life. My hand trembled as I picked up the pen. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself grown children help their parents all the time. I tried to believe him when he said it was just paperwork. But under all those thoughts, another feeling pressed hard against my ribs. A quiet, heavy hurt. Hurt that he had gone ahead without me. Hurt that my small mistakes had been turned into a reason to route my money to his mailbox. When I signed, he smiled big, too big, like he had closed a deal. "See, this is going to be so much better. I'll swing by once a month, give you some cash, and make sure everything's covered. You won't have to think about it." Not having to think about it sounded less like kindness and more like erasing me. I nodded and went back to the chicken, measuring the spices a little too carefully, like being precise with garlic and pepper could prove something. He talked about his rent, his car payment, how tight things were right now. Every time he said tight, I heard the unspoken part. Good thing your check is coming to me. I kept stirring with my eyes on the pan because if I looked at him too long, I was afraid he would see what I was really feeling. I wasn't just tired, I was hurt, I was scared. And under all of that, a very small, very quiet part of me had started whispering that something about this was wrong, even if I didn't yet know how wrong it was going to get. He first month after he became my payee, I tried to act like nothing had changed. I still wrote my grocery list on the same yellow pad, still circled sales in the store flyer, still checked the mailbox like I always had. Only now, there was nothing in there from Social Security, no envelope with my name on it. Every day I opened that empty box, a small knot tightened in my chest. It was my money, but it traveled through his hands first. That thought sat in me like a heavy stone. When he came by, he handed me $50 in cash with a smile, like he was doing me a favor. Here you go, Mom. This is what's left for you after I paid your bills, he said. The words "what's left for you" stung. Underneath them, I heard that my needs came last, after whatever he decided mattered more. I forced myself to smile as I folded the bills. They looked too small in my hand. I knew what my benefit was supposed to be. I had seen the letters before he switched the mailing address to his. The gap between what I knew and what I was being given made my stomach twist. A week later, the water bill came, bright white and impossible to ignore. Across the front, it said "past due" in red letters. My heart dropped. I ran my finger over the amount and felt shame rise, as if the paper itself was judging me. I had never let my utilities fall behind, not even when he was a baby and I was counting coins at the same table. When I showed him the bill, he shrugged. "Yeah, things are tight right now," he said. "Social Security cut your check. It's not as much as it used to be. I'll get to it when I can." Cut your check. The phrase hit me like a slap. I knew they hadn't cut it. No one had told me that. It sounded like a quick excuse he expected me to accept. And every time he said things are tight, my eyes went to his new phone, his car out front with the fresh tires he'd bragged about. Resentment rose like heat in my chest, but I swallowed it. I didn't want to be the difficult mom who questioned her own son. His words pulled up memories I usually kept tucked away. The year he needed a car for work, I cashed out a small savings bond my mother left me. I planned to use it to fix the roof. Instead, I handed him the money and said, "You need to get to your job." He hugged me then, squeezed me tight, and promised, "I'll pay you back, Mom." He never did. I told myself it didn't matter. Helping him mattered more. Now, hearing him talk about my check like it was his to manage, that memory burned like a fresh bruise. Another time, after a breakup, he moved back in. I repainted his room the color he liked, bought curtains, even sewed a pillowcase with his favorite team on it. I remember standing in the doorway, looking at the made bed, feeling proud that I could still make a space feel safe for him. Those same hands that painted those walls now felt shaky when I opened bills I couldn't pay because my son controlled my benefits. That contrast hurt more than I wanted to admit. I thought about when he was little, blue curtains with stars, stitched late at night because we couldn't afford store-bought ones. I wanted him to feel special. He woke up, saw them, and wrapped his small arms around my waist. "You're the best mom," he said. Now he stood in my kitchen, grown, telling me, "SSA, cut your check," like he was reading a weather report. The distance between the boy who hugged me and the man who rationed my money cut deep. I remembered all the times I skipped things for myself so he could have more. The year the church ladies invited me on a trip, I said no because he needed help with rent. I folded that small dream away quietly. Next year, I told them. Next year never came, and now, hearing him explain my own benefits to me like I was a child, I felt something in me harden. Not rage, not yet. More like a slow, heavy disappointment settling into my bones. When I brought up the past due notices again, keeping my voice calm, he waved his hand. "Mom, you're stressing over nothing," he said. "I'm handling it. You just focus on relaxing, okay? Stressing over nothing." Those words cut in a way I didn't show on my face. My whole life had been built on watching every dollar, keeping the lights on, keeping the house warm. To be told that worrying about unpaid bills was nothing felt like he was brushing aside the core of who I had always been. I nodded, but inside I stepped back from him, just a little. On the outside, I stayed quiet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. But every shrug, every excuse, every half truth about my check stacked up inside me. I thought about birthdays I stretched my paycheck for, shoes I bought him instead of replacing my own, vacations I never took so he could go on school trips. All that love, all those choices, stood beside me like silent witnesses while he told me casually that there wasn't much left for me. And the silence in my house started to feel different. Not just the quiet of an older woman living alone, the quiet of someone holding pain close, trying to understand what it meant that the person she loved most could talk about her life money like it was a line in his budget. I still didn't say it out loud, but something important had cracked. I felt it every time he handed me that too small stack of bills and told me everything was fine. It really started to shift the day my neighbor Ruby knocked on my door with a flyer in her hand. "Come with me to the senior center this Thursday," she said. "They're having someone talk about Social Security and money stuff. Might be useful." Normally, I would have smiled and said I was fine, that my son was handling everything. The words were already sitting on my tongue, ready to cover my doubts like they always did. But when I glanced at the overdue bill on the counter and the near-empty fridge, I heard those same words the way my son said them. "I'm handling it." Every time he said that, it made me feel smaller, like a kid waiting for allowance. That ache pushed me to nod instead. "All right," I said. "Can't hurt to listen." The room at the senior center smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner, folding chairs, a few friendly faces, paper cups in people's hands. A woman from a local agency stood at the front with a slideshow and a calm voice. She talked about Social Security, about benefits, about people who get help with their payments. Then she said the words, "Representative Payee," and my eyes locked onto her. A representative payee, she explained, is someone Social Security approves to manage your benefits if they believe you can't safely handle your own money. But the money is still yours. The payee must use it for your needs, your housing, your food, your medicine. They must keep records and receipts. They are not allowed to use it for their own personal bills unless those bills are directly tied to your care. Each sentence felt like a light flicking on in a dark room. My son never showed me receipts. He never sat down with me and went over what he paid. He just put $50 in my hand and told me the rest was handled. He said my check had been cut. Hearing this woman calmly say the payee must keep records made me feel relieved and sick at the same time. Relieved because I wasn't imagining things. Sick because I knew, deep down, this was not what was happening. She kept going. Social Security may ask the payee for an accounting. They can remove them if they misuse funds. And if your payee refuses to tell you how your money is being used, that is a serious warning sign. I thought of the time I asked my son, "Can I see something from Social Security, just to know what's what?" He laughed in that easy way of his and said, "Mom, that stuff is confusing. That's why they picked me. Don't worry about it." On the surface, it sounded protective. Underneath, it felt like a locked door. Sitting there, listening to this woman talk about rights and responsibilities, I heard his laugh differently. His, "Don't worry about it," wasn't kindness. It was distance. It was him pushing me away from my own life. Right in the middle of the talk, the woman said, "If your payee says your check was cut but you never got a letter, you can ask questions. You have a right to know. Silence and secrecy are not kindness. They are warning signs." That sentence hit me hard. Silence and secrecy are not kindness. It pulled up a memory I'd buried for years. I was 18 again, standing in my father's kitchen. I'd been paying bills with my part-time job, stocking the pantry, trying to be responsible. One night he told me I was lucky he let me stay under his roof, as if my work meant nothing. "You're irresponsible," he said after I misplaced one receipt. "You'd be lost without me." I remembered packing my things with shaking hands, even though I'd paid for half the groceries in that house. Now my son's words, "SSA, cut your check, you just lose it if you tried to handle it," echoed with that same tone. Different mouth, same message. "You don't know what you're doing. Let me control it." Ruby leaned over and whispered, "You all right, hun?" I realized my hands were clenched in my lap. I think my son is my payee, I whispered back, but this isn't how he's doing it. Ruby's face softened. Then you need to find out exactly what's going on. On the ride home, I couldn't stop replaying his phrases. Things are tight. They cut your check. I'm handling it. Lines I once took as help now felt like smoke in my face. My resentment settled deeper. It wasn't just about the money, it was about him talking to me like I couldn't be trusted with the truth. When I got home, I went straight to the drawer where I kept old letters. I found the last Social Security statement they had mailed to me before he changed the address. I traced the benefit amount with my finger. The number was much higher than the $50 I'd been getting each month. I wrote it down in a notebook, my heart beating fast. Then I flipped through my spiral pad where I tracked bills and late notices, circling the months things had slipped since he became my payee. The pattern stared back at me. That evening, I opened my tablet and pulled up his social media page. I almost never looked, but this time I made myself. There it was, a post from the month after he took over my benefits. A picture of his car with new rims. The caption said, "Finally caught up on everything. Feels good to breathe with this extra money." Extra money. My throat tightened. He had never said where that extra came from. I knew. Seeing it bragged about in public while I stood in my kitchen counting crumpled bills for groceries felt like a slap I didn't see coming. I set the tablet down, hands shaking, not from fear this time, but from something sharper. That was the moment I stopped telling myself he must be confused or overwhelmed. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice. The next day I called him and said, as calmly as I could, "I'd like to see a statement from Social Security." He let out a long sigh. "Mom, why are you making this so complicated?" he said. "You're going to stress yourself out." "I told you, they cut your check. There's not much to see." Every word scraped against what I now understood. "Why are you making this so complicated?" As if asking about my own income was unreasonable. As if his comfort mattered more than my security. I kept my voice even. "I still want to see it," I said. "It's my benefit." There was a pause, then his tone turned cooler. "You don't trust me or something?" That question used to shut me down. I used to rush to say, "Of course I trust you," and drop it. This time, I let the weight of it sit there. I thought of how I helped my own mother when she got older, how I showed her every bill, every receipt, never taking a dollar that wasn't for her. I had been proud of that honesty. "I just want to understand," I replied. My voice stayed steady, that's all. He muttered something about being busy and hung up. The click in my ear felt like a door closing, but instead of leaving me in the dark, it did the opposite. It made everything clearer. I sat at my small kitchen table and realized I wasn't going to be the quiet, grateful victim anymore. I was done accepting answers that didn't make sense. I opened my notebook and wrote down what I learned at the senior center. I wrote his phrases. I wrote the benefit amount from the old statement. I wrote every bill that had gone unpaid. As the ink filled the page, my confusion finally started to clear. The hurt was still there, sharp and real, but now it had a shape. And with that shape came something I hadn't felt in a long time, the first steady steps of strength. On a quiet Tuesday morning, I took my notebook off the table and slipped it into my purse. I had written everything down, the benefit amount from my old letter, the $50 he handed me each month, the unpaid bills, and the notes from the senior center talk. My hands were steady. I wasn't shaking anymore. I locked the front door, walked down the steps, and went to the bank without calling my son or telling him a word. Inside, the bank air felt cool and still. I walked up to the counter and smiled at the young woman behind the glass. "Good morning," I said. "I'd like a printed statement, please." "I want to see the Social Security deposits for the last few months." She asked for my ID. When she said, "No problem, we can print that for you," I felt two things at once: relief and anger. Relief that someone would show me my own information without acting like I was a burden. Anger because my son had made this feel impossible. Every time he said, "That stuff is confusing, Mom, I'll handle it," he was building a wall between me and something simple. She handed me the papers, still warm from the printer. I stepped aside to a small table and laid them flat. There it was, in clear numbers, the full benefit amount. The same as before, not cut, not reduced. Every month, the full amount went into the account he controlled as my payee. I read the numbers twice just to be sure. In that moment, every line he had ever thrown at me came back, one by one. SSA, cut your check. Things are tight. There's not much left for you. Why are you making this so complicated? Each phrase now felt like its own lie, not a misunderstanding. My resentment rose again, but it wasn't loud. It was cold and clear. He had looked me in the eye, month after month, and told me stories while the full amount landed right where he could reach it. I thought about late fees. I thought about stretching that $50, eating toast when I should have had a real meal. I thought about his new rims and that post about finally breathing with extra money. The unfairness settled on my shoulders like a weight I was finally strong enough to carry. I folded the statement carefully and slid it into my notebook. I thanked the teller and walked out. Outside, I didn't pace. I didn't cry. I just went home with a plan already forming. I was done asking him for anything. I was done waiting for his permission to understand my own money. Back at the house, I set my notebook, the bank statement, and my old Social Security letter on the table. I took a deep breath, picked up the phone, and called Social Security. When the automated voice asked if I was calling about a representative payee, I pressed yes without hesitation. When a worker answered, I gave my name and details. Then I said it. My son is my representative payee. I believe he is not using my benefits correctly. Saying those words out loud hurt in a way I can't fully explain. This was my child. Naming what he was doing made the betrayal real, but there was also a strange calm in it. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't begging. I was simply telling the truth to someone who could actually do something about it. The worker's voice stayed patient. "Can you tell me why you think that?" she asked. So I did. I told her the amount he gave me in cash each month. I told her about the unpaid bills. I told her he said my check had been cut. Then I read the deposit amounts from the bank statement and the benefit amount from my old letter. My voice stayed level, but inside I felt memories press against my chest. Every time I helped him. Every time I said yes. Every time I believed him when he told me not to worry. "Do you have dates?" she asked. "Yes," I said, opening my notebook. I read her the dates my benefits came in, the months he gave me $50, the months the water or power bill went past due. The pen marks on those pages felt like proof I could hold on to. My life, in order, written down where he couldn't twist it. She listened and typed. "We're going to open a misuse investigation," she said. "We may remove him as your payee. We may also ask him to repay money that was not used for your needs. In the meantime, if you feel unsafe or pressured, please tell us." Hearing that brought a quiet satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't looking for drama. I didn't want a scene. I just wanted my life back. And suddenly, all of his dismissive lines, "You're stressing over nothing, you'd be lost without me," sounded as false as they really were. Later that day, my phone buzzed with a text from him. "Mom, why is Social Security calling me? What did you do? You're blowing this way out of proportion. What did you do stung, but it also confirmed what I already knew. Even now he was trying to flip it around, like I was the problem for noticing. My resentment sharpened, but I refused to let it run me. I typed slowly, choosing each word. I called to ask about my benefits. "That is my right. I will be handling this with them directly." He wrote back, "You're making everything harder for both of us." I was just trying to help. I read that sentence and felt the old urge to explain, to defend myself, to list every unfair thing he had done. Instead, I set my phone face down on the table. I didn't argue. I didn't apologize. I let his words sit there unanswered. For the first time, I didn't rush in to make him feel better. Sitting in my small kitchen with the bank statement and my notebook in front of me, I felt calm in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. My payback wasn't loud, it wasn't cruel, it was simple. I took my power back, step by step, while he still thought he had it. A few days later, the professional payee office called. A woman with a calm, kind voice walked me through how they would pay my rent, utilities, and set aside money for groceries. She explained it like I mattered, like I was a person, not a problem. "You will receive a statement each month," she said, "in your name. You'll be able to see where every dollar went. If anything doesn't look right, you call us. You are not a burden. You have a right to understand your own money. That last line made my throat tighten. I had spent months being spoken to like my questions were annoying, like wanting clarity was drama. Hearing someone say plainly that I had a right to understand, it felt like someone finally opened a window in a room I'd been holding my breath in. When we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time without moving. Not because I was broken, because I was realizing how hard I had worked to stay small and agreeable. How quickly I had accepted the idea that asking for proof meant I was ungrateful. I thought about the $50 in my hand each month like a child's allowance while my bills stacked up. I thought about how many nights I went to bed anxious, telling myself not to stress because that's what he wanted. It wasn't just the money. It was the way he had trained me to doubt my own instincts. A week later, I went in person to sign the final paperwork with the Payee organization. I brought Ruby with me. She didn't speak much. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was a quiet kind of backup. The woman at the desk looked at my ID, smiled, and spoke directly to me. Not over me, not around me. I watched as they explained the plan: rent first, utilities next, medication, and then a set amount for food and everyday needs. They showed me how to read the statement and what to do if something seemed off. Clear steps, clear numbers, no sighing, no, you wouldn't understand, no locked doors. When I walked out of the building, the air felt sharper and cleaner. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, like I had put both feet back under myself. Of course, my son didn't see it that way. He sent another message that night. "So I guess this is how it is now," he wrote. "You let strangers run your life. You're pushing your own family away." The words still stung because I never wanted distance. I wanted partnership. I wanted my son to treat my life like it mattered. But now I could hear what was underneath his anger. He wasn't upset that I didn't trust him. He was upset that he couldn't control the story anymore. I didn't answer. I put the phone face down and let the silence hold for once. Not as punishment, as a boundary. A few days later, Ruby told me the woman from the senior center had asked about me. I guess word travels fast when something finally changes. That evening, I got a short email. "I'm proud of you for speaking up. Many people are too scared to make that call. You did the right thing." I reread it twice. Not because I needed praise, but because it was the first time in a long time someone spoke to me without trying to shrink me. No hint that I was confused. No warning that I was making things hard. Just respect. That night, I sat in my living room with one small lamp on. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. Family photos lined the shelf. Him as a toddler in my arms, him at graduation with that nervous smile, him at Christmas holding a plate of cookies like he'd never outgrow being my boy. I didn't feel rage when I looked at those pictures. I felt love, disappointment, and acceptance all at once. Love doesn't disappear just because the truth shows up, but love also doesn't require you to hand over your safety. He made his choices. I finally made mine, and if you're listening to this and you feel that same knot in your chest, if you've been told you're making a big deal out of nothing while your life slips out of your hands, hear me. You don't have to earn the right to be treated fairly. You don't have to deserve love to deserve honesty. Sometimes the strongest kind of love is the one that stops begging and finally says, "No more." Sometimes the first person you have to protect is yourself,